We're back. We are
Bam.
back. We are here. We are here. We are here. And tonight is gonna be a open discussion amongst ourselves. We have a guest appearance by by a very popular person in our circles. Are we looking forward to having this person on? Um,
Recent award winner.
Recent award winner. And oh man, as I'm talking about her, there she goes.
Uh,
Guys.
Hey, Chrissy, welcome to the show.
award winner.
No. That's a joke.
Hello.
No thanks.
What's up?
I'm good.
So, for those who don't know, our guest tonight and a very staunch supporter of Talk the Ting is Christiana Ambo Jones. Um, I know, some people might know her from Bowie in Dominica, representing, and she's recently won the highest award in a company. I'm not gonna call the company's name. You guys will hear about that soon. But welcome to the show, Chrissy. We definitely
Thanks.
appreciate you coming on. Um, and as I was just saying, we're gonna have a candid, open conversation about a few things, right? One of the main things we're gonna talk about is parenting while black, and I really, really, again, want to say that I'm really grateful for you coming on to have that woman perspective to shoot us down when we're talking nonsense, and
Okay.
so so with that said, um, before we go into it, how was your day, Chrissy? The guest, you go first. How was your day, and how was your week going and stuff like that?
The week is going very fast, which is a good thing. Was an okay day. I had to do a little bit of running around at work, different locations, but besides that, was good.
Nice, nice. And what about you, Carol and Mr. Hadley?
But today was hectic. I had some I had some fires pop up at the last minute there. Half of the stuff that I wanted to get done, getting it done. And I was still busy all day. So, it is what it is. Um, but besides that, it was good. Besides that,
They,
it was good.
they say it's
um,
better to be busy than broke.
Facts.
my day wasn't that challenging. I was pretty much working
Well,
on
rub it in, Natalie.
project. No. Jesus Christ.
Son of
He's
a-
up
Damn.
on Hadley. He's up on Hadley. He just
Damn.
got.
No. I was working on one of the simpler components of my job. Some project proposals, some new um projects are being advertised, and um I work on project proposals, and we have templates for those things. So it was more or less going through what was required from those clients, and copy and pasting stuff and putting a proposal together. So it was pretty quiet. I didn't do any designing today, so which is what I love to do, but whatever. But let me just take a little segue there, just a little bit.
Well,
Last
let me go first.
no, fast thing about our 2 weeks ago, we in targeting in collaboration with Danger Dane and Carnival Gopwell, gave out to two of our very um how should I say
Loyal,
it, loyal
loyal
listeners,
followers.
Anik Williams and Janelle Joseph, the opportunity to attend Carnival Gopwell, not just attend the show but also be a part of the VIP section. And I must say, I've reached out. Well, I've spoken to both of them, and they were very thankful for the opportunity. That they were given, both from Talk the Ting and Danger Dane slash Carnival Gopwell. Janelle even sent a message
And
to
Tamika, because it's fruit
and
Tamika.
and and Jude Law, not Tamika. Correct yourself.
That's a
Jude,
Tamika.
Jude Law not an actor, nah?
Well, you know we. All I know is Jude Law. So these three entities were able to help these give these listeners very nice opportunity and experience. Janelle said that it was a very first time being able to go backstage and meet with an artist, you know. So they were very thankful, and I also thank them for listening and whatnot. So we just want to let y'all know, for those of you who didn't win, that's the experience you can get. We will have some more coming up. So keep on listening, keep on sharing, get your friends and family to follow Talk the Thing, follow Jude Law, and support Danger Dane and his promotion endeavors. And Dwayne, you can take it from here.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of my day, I had a pretty decent day. I'm not gonna say it was easy, but it was a decent day. And one of the challenges right throughout the day is trying to, like Carol was saying, you have a plan in your mind when you wake up. Like, okay, we want to do this, we want to do that, and then you start getting phone calls and emails, and you're like, oh man, all right. So, but anyway, decent day. But back to the original topic. So the thing is that we a lot of conversations we've had kind of offline amongst ourselves, among with other people, and um we wanted to talk a little bit. So Chrissy, I know you have two kids of your own.
Mm-hmm.
Um and well, I'm gonna say you have three kids,
I have 3.
right? And that's an interesting topic in itself, right? Because
Yeah.
I was a I guess you could say a product of being a stepchild, right? I'm a stepchild.
I was
I
about to
was
ask you,
I
what is
was
a
I,
waiting.
product?
I was
I was
What
stepfather.
is a
waiting for
product
you
of
to
being a
You
stepchild?
tried to say something there, I don't know.
What is a product of a stepchild?
I have a stepfather,
Okay,
right.
so I know what it's like to be on the
the other
other
side.
side of
Hmm.
Chrissy, right? Um, so give us a little bit of your thoughts on maybe the positives and maybe the challenges of parenting, you know, as a black
Step,
woman, in America.
or just in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll start. Let's start generally because I feel like we start talking about being black in America and being a parent in America. It can be a total. Let's
All right.
just start
All
in
right.
general.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say parenting in itself is challenging, no matter what color you are, right? Um, for me, it's just something that well, hopefully, right? Whether you planned it or it happened or whatever it is, or you're step parenting or you're, borrowing your nieces, whatever it is, it's something that is a huge responsibility. One, being responsible for another life, another whole person, right? They're eating, drinking, sleeping, breathing. That's something that, sometimes I don't even sleep because, it's always on your mind. So the responsibility is huge. And I think it's something that you really have to do intentionally, right? You have to do it with your eyes wide open. And the decisions you make around parenting, it's things you think about or you should think about, I would say a lot. When you say parenting in America, I laugh because the things that we grew up with or the parenting that we grew up with, it doesn't always work the same here, right? You're talking about sometimes you have different laws and protections, definitely different perceptions of things, and so culture differences plays a big part, I think, in the choices that we make, what you choose to do inside your house versus outside your house, and little people talk. So even if you say,
Oh
okay,
my
I
God.
can do that inside, you have to be careful what makes it outside.
Tell me
So
about it, man.
yeah, so yeah, there's a lot. Just everything you do, you have to think about, all right, and not just about disciplining and everything from where they go to school, from what they wear. It's a lot. It's decisions you make every day, 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of piggyback on your point, I think um one of the challenges, right, is one of the main challenges I believe is that thought of, like, like you said, your child grows from being an infant, right, not being able to talk and whatever, and then you kind of annoyed at them crying, to them running around the house not sitting down, and you annoyed at them not sitting down. And then, like, right now I'm going through the phase where all my son wants to do is be on a tablet all day. I want my tablet, I want my tablet, I want my tablet. And trying to kind of take that out of him to, like, okay, it's warm outside, let's go outside and play. But it's
It's hard.
it's hard. It's definitely tough. and we have friends who have chosen not to have kids, and it's a decision that I would say for me at first, when I was thinking of having kids, I was always interested in having kids, but that's another dynamic of it, right? Because sometimes you think everything is on your timeline and it's not, right? Sometimes when you want it to
Yep.
happen, it doesn't happen, and you start thinking, well, something wrong with me and all these different things. So I mean, everything happens for a reason. But Carol and Hadley, you guys
Boy,
not there yet. So
I have so many
what you
comments.
guys have to
All you
say?
talk about so many different little things that I want
Yes,
to
jump
dig
in,
into,
jump in,
because
ask.
I suspect it's us that have to interview all you tonight there. Because
Yes.
because I don't have kids. Yeah, I want kids.
Hmm.
Um, but I think in terms of, Chrissy said cultural differences, and I think it's also generational too,
Yes, big one.
right? Because we all grew up in Dominica, but then when you look at it, how we were raised as kids, the resources that kids now in Dominica have, we didn't have, right? So
Mm-mm.
really and truly, we didn't really have a choice in but to go outside and play. For one, you couldn't play inside your mother house,
Nope.
Yep.
right? Because it's something fall
Nobody.
and break and this and this and this.
You're mad.
And you see, I get where you were coming from in terms of what you can do in your house, or you know,
Hmm.
but it's just like in terms of the how we were raised, and how you're raising your kids now, like what are the real major differences that you see, right? Besides, well, technology is one of
Hmm.
the big defining factors, but outside of that, like how do you really navigate that?
Yeah, for me, it's less about the resources and things we have. I think that's always going to change with time.
Mhm.
I think the
Mm,
real key areas to focus on is things like values, right? Values and principles that we want to pass down. Um, Caribbean life, very strict parenting. You don't really have parents that are your friends, right? You have mommy and daddy, and there's a distance.
How was it, boy?
There's a distance, a safe distance. When they speak, it's respect. They speak once. Well, at least that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
Daddy said something, he said it once. I would say probably there were times I'd be afraid to ask my parents to do so. I used to ask to drink water, guys. So
That's not good.
I
Wait,
Wow.
and it
what?
wasn't even like a fearful thing. It was just like that's just how it was. I asked to go in the fridge, I asked to drink water. So I mean, not everybody grew up in like very strict that extreme, but there are
Mhm.
people who did and there are people who didn't. But just in general, I think growing up in the Caribbean, I don't think it's Dominica alone. You have very very strict upbringing, discipline and that type of thing. I think in my approach, like what's different from me, I still want to have that sternness, but I want to build that relationship where my kids can talk to me because I don't feel like I had not a bad thing. I mean, I'm very close with my father today. My mom passed, so it's not a bad thing. But I don't feel like I was like close to my parents like they were my friend.
Mhm.
So I would say
yeah.
that as I was growing up, there's things I probably never went to them with that I would want my kids to come to me for.
Yep.
So that's something I established very very early. That and I always tell them, I said, tell mommy everything. I want to know everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you can tell me. So yeah, I think more about the values and you want to keep those grounded values, but you want to build that relationship, so you have to take a different approach. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah, I think to kind of jump on that question, I think one of the things for me is before I had a kid, I always used to think that I wanted a kid that had a mind of his own, right? So, because I grew up like we all grew up in Dominica. We all grew up with a lot of people, and I was saying this to somebody the other day. Like, there's a lot of people who we knew growing up and now they're dead or they're in prison or they followed the wrong crowd, they got involved in the wrong scenario. And then America, to some degree has other layers on top of that, right? Not just those things that I'm talking about, whether it be drugs or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
um and one of the things I always said, well, I want a kid with a mind of his own. Now I have a almost 4-year-old kid, and I feel like he have too much of a mind of his own.
It's just enough yet.
Brace
so,
yourself then.
so the thing is that I think for me, very similar to what Chrissy said. I grew up very, very close to my mom. Um, and my biological father was not in my life right until I became an adult, really. And my stepdad was there. I remember people having conversations with me, like, if I did something, and my stepdad would like give me some licks, and they would say my stepfather could never hit me. And I'm like, what? Like, because I like my whole life I grew up like he'd been with my mom since I was 3. So, well, 2.5, 3 years old. So I grew up knowing him as my father, right? So I accepted those things, right? And one of the things that I still think about, and exactly what Chrissy said was, yes, we grew up with this mindset of our parents are our parents, right? They're not our friends. And sometimes the parents would say that, I'm not your friend, I'm your father, or I'm your mother, right?
I
And
still say it.
well, that's one of the things that I think about, because you want to make sure that, for example, your kid goes out at 16 and maybe they drink or they do something that kids do, and they're not scared to call you, to come pick them up or something like that, right? And that relationship you have to build from when they're young, not when they
Right.
turn 12 and you're then trying to get them to now talk to you.
Right.
um, and I think it's important in every aspect of your life. And sometimes it means sacrificing certain things, right? So, yes, you want to make money, but if that money means you're going to spend more time away from your kid, then you might give that up, right? You might think, well, it's important for me to spend time with my kid, right? So I don't want to take a job where I'm working all this overtime, or I'm not in the house at all, stuff like that. So those are some of the things that I think about a lot. You know, Carol, I guess that to answer your question.
Okay. Okay. So
Gladly.
so you mentioned values and whatnot, and I guess we can also tie in tradition and culture, because again we come from a different place living here. And when I moved here, I noticed that a lot of Caribbean people, Dominican people, who had American born children, for some reason, they just refused to, let's say, teach certain things
Mm.
to those kids. For example, Creole, speaking Creole. I think a lot of Dominican parents. If you don't speak Creole, you don't speak it, and I totally understand that. Shame on you, though. You from Salisbury. But if you don't speak it, you don't speak it, and I'm fine with it. But the fact that you can speak it, but you also use, it's like a lot of Dominican parents has used the Creole language as a way to speak around their children,
Mm.
and them not knowing what they're saying. And while I can understand
Yeah, to pong your
that,
Beth.
right, well, I can understand, but then when these kids become teenagers and adults, and then they start telling people, oh, I'm from Dominica and my family from Dominica, yet still you don't know, there's nothing that they know, and I think that is something that they can, that is something that they could use to relate to back home. I remember a friend of mine used to have a little book writing Creole things, whether she spelt it correctly or not. But then she would write the English next to it. And then every now and then when we spoke, she would tell me something in Creole, and then she would say, is that what it means? And then I had to end up teaching her what it is. So is that something that, Dwayne, you speak Creole? You come from a family who speaks Creole, you're from Granby. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
what you think about that.
What kind of
Yeah.
And
stereotype
is
is that?
that
What
is
kind of
that
stereotype is that? Because I'm from Gambia,
is
I speak Creole.
is that
Stereotype.
some is that no
You
no
are
when I
you are
Answer the question.
no
self-proclaimed
I
cultural
ask
capital of Dominica.
right no
And you
I ask him because
stereotype.
I know he can speak it, and I know the people in
Mhm.
his household speaks the language, and his son is old enough. So is that something that you do actively at your house?
Yeah, man. I mean, I honestly, when I was growing up, right, it was it was weird, right? That's the best way I could describe it with. Because my grandfather, for example, my grandfather spoke to me, always spoke English, never spoke Creole. But my grandmother, every time she speak to me in Creole.
Hmm.
Even up to today, if I call them, as soon as they start talking, my grandmother will go to Creole, and my grandfather still, just only speaks English to us, right?
Mm,
And you made a comment and said, well, they speak Creole around you so that you don't understand, but eventually you start learning, and
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much how I learned Creole.
Because you want to
No-
understand.
Yeah, nobody taught me, right? Eventually, like you say, start hearing stuff, you start seeing what things mean, and you put two and two together and you learn it, right? And I never forget, I was young and I asked my mother one time because I always thought Creole sounded harsh. Like
It does.
It
so
does.
I remember asking my mother, can I speak Creole to her? Because it was just harsh, like to me, like the way it came off, right?
It's
Hmm.
not as smooth as French.
Right, and especially with our Granby accent, it really coming out, So, but even now with my son, like I don't necessarily practice teaching him Creole, but like certain things I've done this, right? Certain things we'll tell him in Creole, or like tell him to say certain words or stuff like that. And one thing that I always think like for me is, as Dominicans, like our roots, man. One of the things that I always feel that's important is not forgetting like where we came from, because you meet people and it always kind of jumps out at me. I meet people at work all over the place, and they like 5, 6, 7 generations away from Ireland or it's Italy and whatever, and they tell you, oh, I'm Italian. They never hide that, right? They never hide the
Right.
fact that that is their
Mm-hmm.
heritage or whatever you want to call it. And I feel like a lot of times we come to America, as first generation people, I guess, or kids of first generation
Forget.
Americans, and then we kind of push that to a side. So by the time my son has a kid or whatever, like they don't even know where Dominica is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a big no-no, right? So one of the things that I always think is, no, you have to tell them, no, you're not, your parents are from here. Whenever you get the opportunity to take them back home, you take them back home, and show them, where you're from, where you grew up. Maybe they won't understand it when they're young, but when they start getting older, they'll
You
see,
understand?
because I mean, just the other day, I had a few people who went home, and they were saying about like when they go back home, it's like they see how, you know, basically how life is different. Even now, they see how life is different back home to here, right? So
Mm-hmm.
to me, that's important, man. It's part of that culture that we spoke about. It's preserving that and making sure that that your kids don't forget that, because if you forget that, then you kind of forgetting yourself.
I wouldn't say don't forget it. They learn it because it's on you to not forget it, but for them they have to learn the culture, and
That's true.
it's on you to teach them, right? Because I have cousins. I grew up there. I have cousins who grew up here in America, but every summer or vacation they were home. So
Mm-hmm.
they basically grew up in Dominica, or part of their growing up was in Dominica. So
Right.
they understand, like they understood the culture, they got to know it. So I think that is also an important part,
Mm-hmm.
um, in that we give them the exposure to the actual culture outside of just us. Oh, well, I say us, but I'm not quite there.
You,
Um,
you, yes, you soon, man. Don't worry about it.
you know,
Lendy Jones said not them St. Lucians, nah? So I'm guessing that Lendy Jones is basically
Right.
trying to say that St. Lucians actually do teach the
Creole.
I
Creole
wonder if St.
to,
Lucia speak more Creole than Dominicans. I think so.
yeah boy, St.
People
Lucia
say that.
speaking,
People say
yeah
they
boy,
do.
you
Yeah.
mad?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so.
yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you guys. It's very important to, and like Carol said, we have to teach them, right? Because they don't have any memory of it. That's not where they were born. That's not
Right.
where they're being raised. I have two very proud, what do they call themselves? Caribbean Americans. My children, they label themselves, okay?
Of
Caribbeans.
course.
Yes.
I
Caribbean.
hate that. I
They're
hate
very
that term,
proud of
boy.
what they
Caribbeans.
know. They don't know much, but they know something, and they're very proud of that.
But that's good. That's good.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
So, Dwayne, you had mentioned your father. I call him your father because that's the thing. So, in terms of having your father in your life, and having him there and having him discipline you and that kind, and helping raise you, and you also mentioned seeing people that you grew up with, either dead or involved in, I call it the life.
Mhm.
What as a parent of that you saw from your parent that you would want to impart on your son, so to speak?
Good question, man. I think um, I don't know. It's like a double-edged sword, right? Catch 22. Because I understand why my stepdad was very strict,
Mm-hmm.
right? I understand why, like, especially now that I'm older. Um, and I think it's also helped kind of, shape my mindset on certain things in life. Um, Although sometimes you wish things were different, and sometimes you wish you had maybe a tighter bond and whatever. But it's like, um, one of the things that I I learned from my stepfather was the value of hard work. I learned that at a young age, because I would see him leave the house at 6, 7 in the morning and not come back till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And it's not because he was out there doing nonsense. Because at any given time, if my mother would say, especially when I started driving, when I turned 18, and my mother would say, "Oh, your father by Texaco, go check him out, whatever, whatever," and I would go there. Like, you'd be on the truck working after you work a whole day by like he'd be by Texaco working at night. You know what I'm saying, in the afternoon, well, after 4 o'clock. And and I learned sort of like what it was to provide for your family.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And like that being like um your main objective, right? As a man, right? In the house, you're married and stuff, and you have to be responsible. And part of your responsibility is to take care of your family, right? Whether it be financial or whatever the case is, right? So I understand now that in some instances, sometimes to get one, you sacrifice the other, right? You sacrifice maybe time at home, but
Mm-hmm.
making sure that the money's there and all that stuff, and whatever. Um, so right now, I try to put myself in a position where I'm able to try to do both to some degree, right? I mean, that I would say that, and also, another thing would be some level of humility, right? Because even, myself, he would always tell me like stuff like, you're not, we're not better than anybody else. Like, you working hard, you have certain things. And I never forget a story he gave me when I was younger. And he told me, he was dating this girl that was before my mother, and he had just started working, but he was so by dumb, like, and he just started working. And when he first got some money, he said, sorry, I got muted. He wanted to buy a piece of land. And the girl he was with at the time, when he said he wanted to buy the land, she said, no, why don't you buy a car? And, and he said, based on that conversation alone, he broke up with her,
Mm-hmm.
because he realized like she was not going to be good for him, right? And that always plays in my mind. So even when it comes to like, choosing a spouse and choosing a wife, and all those things in terms of what decisions you make in life, I don't think he ever thought that that would stay in my mind like that, but it's still in my head up to today. And one other thing that, and I know that Chrissy spoke about it. I never forget. I was young, maybe like 6 years old, 6, 7 years old, and I love cricket. Love everybody knows that. I still love cricket up to today. And I never forget. We went to the playing field in Geneva in Granby, and I was there with him, and we were practicing cricket. And somebody says, "Oh man, I didn't know you have such a big kid." And he just said, "Yeah, that's my son." I never forget that at 6 years old, up to today. So that's why it's like in my mind, and that ties back to like the responsibility. Because when he got with my mother, I was already there, so he accepted me as part of his responsibility. And that's one thing that I think that I would want to pass on to my kid, to my son. You know,
Mm-hmm.
work hard. Don't be envious of people for what they have. People, you never know what people do to get what they have. And as long as you're willing to work hard, you put your head down, you could do a lot of things in your life. You might not do everything you want, but you could live a pretty good life. So that's my answer to that.
Yep. You said something that's very important, right? Which is there's a lot of teaching and talking and we do it to kids, but the things they remember is what we do, right? The example, like how your father didn't know that you were going to take all of these things with you, right? The impression that he left and the things that stay with you today. Sometimes we get so conscious about teaching them things that we have to remember to be practicing those things ourselves. I think that's very, very important. That we do what we want them to do because that's what they're going to follow.
Yep.
Nice, nice. So, in terms of, well, I guess I'll just add my own experience, and in terms of what I plan to do or I hope to be able to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
One saying that has stuck with me from my aunt, because my mom passed away when I was young. My dad didn't live in Dominica, so I didn't grow up with him. My aunt raised me. She's my mother pretty much, but I was old enough to know that she's my aunt, so I it is just like I interchange it too. She always says, "Remember who you are and whose you are."
Mm.
Basically, telling me don't embarrass her and don't embarrass myself.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, she was very strict. Um, but I see, I grew up and I understood why she had to be that way because of the influences that were around me. And she, she used to say, I'm a very impressionable person. I let people tell me what to do and so on and so on. And so on.
Mm.
I never felt that way about myself,
Yeah.
but I guess hers looking at it from the outside, that's kind of what she saw. So she had to be like felt like she had to hold me a little tighter before
Mm-hmm.
um letting me do my thing. But I was raised in church, so good moral values, and like growing up, even though like I'm not as active in the church as I used to be, those values still
Stay.
hold. And I feel like morality and, as Dwayne said, humility and being an overall good person is something that I would hope that my child would be, and just having that being level headed and being able to make decisions for yourself, um, without having somebody else influence you, or even your parent influence you, right? Because at a certain point where you think you can make a choice on your own and you can stand on your own 2 feet, that's always something that you would hope for, So, Ali, you were going to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say for me, like I wasn't raised with any of my parents.
Mm.
While both were there, I wasn't raised. My father was in St. Martin. My mother was in Salisbury. So I was raised by my grandmother. And grandparents can be, we know how grandparents can be. And my grandmother was one of those. And the thing is, my grandmother's husband wasn't my grandfather. And even if I called him daddy, he wasn't really a disciplinarian to me. Like he didn't really take up that much responsibility in disciplining me and my upbringing. It was really my grandmother and my aunties. Although he was there, and every now and then, if nobody was there and I did something, he would correct me, but he would always let them do it because I wasn't his grandchild, I guess. But one thing I can say that I would want to pass when I eventually have kids is my grandmother. After a while, even though she had that hold on me, and disciplining me, she after a while knew when to let me go.
Mm-hmm.
And if it means let me go, let me run for me to fall, or to let me go. And I could never forget, like, I started playing music in church. That's where I learned playing music. All my aunts used to sing, and their boyfriends at the time, now husbands, were musicians in the church. And I started playing music, and then I started playing secular music outside of church. And then Granny used to see me on TV.
Backslide boy.
you know, Granny, my grandmother used to see me playing music on TV, and I guess she was kind of appreciative of the kind of music I was playing, because I used to play music for Ophelia and Michael Henderson, and it wasn't really the hardcore bouillon. She didn't see that side. I used to do it, but
Yet,
she didn't see
not
it.
yet.
No, I used to do it, but that part wasn't really on TV. I mean,
Oh, that part wasn't on TV. Okay.
just before the news, Ophelia playing, and I playing drums for Ophelia. I mean, that played. But there was one time, like, I really sat down with her when I went home for a week, and I'm like, are you disappointed in me, in the fact that you raised me up in the church and now I'm no longer in the church? And, like, I really wanted to see where she was with that. And then she told me something that has stuck with me to this day. And that was when I realized that she was willing to let me, be an adult. And she said, while she would prefer go to church and see me playing the drums in church like I used to, she is right now okay with turning on her television and seeing where I am playing music, than to walk down to church and see me on the side of the road chilling with my friends.
Yep.
And it's not a shot at my friends or whatnot, but she's basically saying that if you no longer had to play music in church, then I would prefer see you there than you on the block. And that was when I realized that she was okay with me now trying to find myself. Like she was satisfied that I've raised this child to be whatever. Now he wants to make certain decisions. And while I'm not 100% happy with the decision, I would prefer this one than the one that I'm seeing every day with the people that he was raised with. And I would want to do that one day. I would want to be able to get to a point with my son or my daughter where I can say, I think that I've instilled enough in you that you can now make certain decisions on your own, and I now have to just not be happy about it, but live with it, because this is what he or she wants to be.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. So,
That,
Abnali, you
no,
gonna
go
say
ahead, go ahead,
something?
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, now no, that leads me to a point, because I know doing you you were talking about somebody, a very prominent individual in society, and the choices that he's been making
Mhm.
in terms of he has gotten to a point where his talent has taken him, right? And from what I see, he's literally throwing the opportunity away.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yep.
You and Hadley probably following more. So I'll let you guys talk on it. I don't need to set that up for you, because looking at it from just my perspective and me being, a young black man, not so young anymore, but young black man,
Well,
Young,
Very
young
young,
still,
my
but
right.
you know, yeah.
young, very young.
you know, it's just it's disheartening to see, like, someone having the opportunity to do something so great with themselves and then taking it for granted.
Yep.
So I'll let you expand on the situation, and Chrissy, you give your thoughts if you have any.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, I think so Carol speaking about this young guy who plays for the Memphis Grizzlies. His name is Ja Morant. And he's not the first, right? He's not the first of many young men who've done really well for themselves and
Squandered it.
worked really hard to get to where they have to get to. I mean, 2 days ago, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine at work, and one thing that Charles Barkley always said was, people make fun of like the worst players in the NBA, but if you think the worst player in the NBA only has 400 and something players. The worst player in the NBA is still a very, very good basketball player, right? Because
Yeah.
the world has 8 billion people, right? So you could think of it that way. But this guy is, I mean, one of the top talents in the NBA, and he's had
Tumultuous.
he had one situation where he had they accused him of pulling a gun on us. I think it was a 17-year-old kid. That kind of went away. Then he had another situation where he was on Instagram in a strip club with a gun on Instagram Live. And then they suspended him for 8 games. The NBA suspended him for 8 games. And then recently,
There was
in the
6
last,
incidents.
yeah, well, the
Six.
main ones. But
Yeah.
the recently, in the last, I would say, week or so, another video popped up of him, being on Instagram Live with a gun. And it's interesting, this particular scenario, because he his father is very present in his life. His father is like at all his games and stuff, which is normally, I don't want to say normally, that's wrong, but in many scenarios in the black community, that's not the case, right? The father is normally missing and the mother's
Right.
there,
That's true. That's true.
right? So to me, that's quite interesting that the father's there. And the way I could kind of um parallel that situation is like we all grew up in Dominican. We know people who grew up in quote unquote good families, or with big name and whatever you want to call that. And it always seemed to me that there were some people who were fascinated by the life of drugs and crime and all those
Ghetto
kind of
youth.
things when they really didn't have to be, in those type of scenarios. Um, it's really sad that this is happening. I think and this is where Kerry, like when I was talking about like my son having a mind of his own, that was more of me going to like him being a leader, right? And that's the correlation I could make to like somebody like LeBron James, right? Because
Mm.
LeBron James grew up without a father, right,
Mm-hmm.
with his mother, and became what he is today, right? And whether you like LeBron or not, because somebody called me recently, like 2 weeks ago, and they're like, "Why do people hate LeBron? Why do people hate LeBron?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, because LeBron is really an outlier in the black community.
He
He's
is.
like he's a
He
huge
is.
outlier because he's not. You would think that over the 20 years that he's been in the NBA, that some scandal would have happened, something would have happened for them to
Yeah,
say
nothing, man.
how much of a bad person he is and what he's this and that, and nothing in the last 20 years. So
Mm-hmm.
immense respect to LeBron and his mom for his mom, first of all, for raising somebody to be like
Mm-hmm.
what he is today. And you see how he is with his wife and his kids, and you know and stuff like that, and even what he's done for his circle, right? LeBron has put his friends in a position where they are now millionaires
Rich
on their
Paul.
own work, not based on what he gave them, but he gave them opportunity and they took it, right? And honestly, it's a little sad that that situation is happening with John Morant. But when I really think about it, I really wonder like what is that? And I don't know if anybody in the comments might have theories on why that is.
Yeah.
Like why do people have why does it seem like people who have certain situations who don't have to be involved in certain lives, why are they so fascinated by it? Like because
But we
most people in the hood are trying to get out. Most people,
I
they're
think
not trying to
are
stay.
they are most people trying to get out?
Oh,
I
that's
think
that's
as I think
that's
I
the
think
debate. That's
again
the
that's
debate.
us looking from the outside, right? Someone in the comments, Rashida said the presence of a father doesn't necessarily mean that there's a positive influence, right? And that's true.
That's
I
true.
think there is a glorified image of being the bad guy or having the struggle story or coming out from the hood. So for some people who I don't know what the person's background is, but for some
Mhm.
people that is a glorified life, right? They want to have that image because there is I mean there's different there are the people that want to get out of the hood, but there is a glorified perception of we hear it in the rap music, right? I shot how many people, or I've been shot how many times, and I used to sell drugs on the corner. Some people make up these stories because they want to be in things. I've heard
Yeah.
that too. People,
Yeah.
Mhm.
they make up stories about a hard life that they never had, and we thinking like, why would you want to even have that life? So I think there's sometimes that I guess as a young person trying to find yourself and you choosing which of these perceptions or which of these glorified images is the one you want to portray. Kind of have a choice, I guess, at that stage in his life with all that money, and he can choose whichever one he wants. He's choosing the wrong one. But there is a glorified perception of that type of life. And again, we don't know. Yes, his father's at his games, but we don't know what kind of father that was. Maybe he
Right.
just showed up recently because, my son is in the NBA and maybe that's a way that he can connect with his father. Maybe that's impressing his father. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
there's lots of things behind those types of, to me, acting out, right?
Yeah.
I would say I've kind of followed the Jamoran thing. I watch a little basketball closer to playoff time, and I think what it is like most celebrities or athletes, they got themselves out of the ghetto, out of the hood because of their talent. Ja was taken out of it even prior to him being where he is. So he was, while he was removed, his parents saw his father has always been there. By the way, he's been in a very good family. His mom, his dad, his sister, and himself. It's a family, but they were removed from that. But I mean, obviously, you have friends who are still there,
Mm-hmm. Want
and
to
and I think
connect.
what and I think right. I think what is happening to him is he cannot, like you say, it's glorified, the whole idea of the experience and the story. You
The
came out of the
struggle,
hood, the
yeah.
struggle story. He doesn't have that, and
He wants to identify
I
with
think
it.
he wants to identify
Hmm.
with it, and for me, one way you can identify with it is keeping is being close to people who actually have that story, and I think that's what he's doing,
So
because that very same friend that was on the IG live was that very same friend who almost walked onto the court to have a fight with LeBron and some of the Lakers players and Shannon Sharp
Mhm.
because there was some back and forth words. That very same friend, his mom, and like Rashida said, that it's not every parent, a father being there doesn't mean it's positive. His mom went into a store and she had a disagreement with an employee of that store. She didn't like she didn't like it, and what she did was she called her son, but she didn't just call her son because of her son. She knows who her son hangs with.
yeah.
She knows who her son hangs with. They pull up, literally, as they would say, they pull up at that store, him being who he is, but the friends are also there. And when they were asked to leave, they went and waited outside for that employee and whatnot. So again, it's the people. And right
Mhm.
now, I think at this point, the parents are not helping,
Mm.
because even when they had that scuffle at a Lakers game, his dad, instead of one, I don't think he was supposed to get involved. You have to leave that up to the organization and the security guard to deal with that. He was kind of an aggressor in the whole altercation on national TV. His dad will be on the sidelines drinking alcohol while his son is playing. And so even if his father is there,
Yeah.
is he a positive influence at this point? Going
Mhm.
back to what Rashida said, he is
So
there.
so hardly to that point now, what comes to mind and what Rashida said as well is a lot of times, you know, I mean, I don't have any statistics to back this up, but I kind of feel that, you know, and shout out, it was just Mother's Day on Sunday. Shout out to the mothers, shout out to Chrissy. Happy Mother's Day, happy belated Mother's
Thank
Day.
you.
And but I always give women their credit, man, because I always say women are way stronger than guys. I always think that, like, in my mind,
It's true.
because I honestly feel like if I had to go through some of the stuff that I heard women go through, I don't think I could do it, man. And but sometimes you think like, okay, somebody's raised by a single mother and they turn out to be, decent people in society. And then, some people, like Rashida said, have fathers there, and it's almost like a detriment to them. It's almost like, because if you're in a house and your mother says one thing and your father says another, you figure,
Mm,
well, you're gonna follow
mm,
your father. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you know. Um, but I don't know, man. I really, I don't know the answer to that. I think ultimately, um, again, in my mind, this is
mm.
my theory. It comes down to you having a mind of your own and being a leader. And being a leader might mean that John Morant would have to do some of the hard things, which would be to cut some people off in his life.
Exactly.
Right? The hard thing would be, hey, I grew up with these guys, great, they've been here, whatever, but nobody wants to be seen as the guy who's switched up. Like you
Mhm.
Yeah.
don't you don't you,
But
you
it's
don't you
image,
don't
image and perception again. It's
you know,
poor. It
exactly,
sounds
which is
like
what I'm saying is
they
leadership,
physically moved from the situation. They didn't
but they're not
mentally move
mentally.
at
Yeah,
all. Yeah.
yeah. Charles Barkley said, I keep on mentioning Charles Barkley. He says a lot of nonsense, but he also has some gems in there. He said one of the hardest things for him when he joined the NBA was to start telling his family no.
Steve
He
Harvey
said,
said that too.
because people just figure
Yeah.
you got
We see
money. So every time they're gonna come to you, hey, I need this, I need that. And then you start asking them, well, what do you need the money for? What is this? And then they get mad that they're asking you for
Yeah.
your money. You know,
And you asking them why and you asking them why they need it.
Why?
why you need the money. And Barkley said that. He said one of the hardest things for him was when he started getting money was to cut people off.
that.
And Jay-Z said that as well. Like, people say, well, you've changed. But he said, why would I work this hard so I could remain the same? No, I'm not going to remain the same. Yes, I have changed. So if you're not going to change along with me and get better, then you have to go. And And that's why I say, like, having a mind of your own, because that's a tough decision to make for people that you feel who've been there with you, from the time you were, 5 years old. You know.
Yeah.
No, but we can again, like you said, LeBron is an outlier because LeBron was, I would think, in the same situation as Ja. You have friends from the hood, and
Yeah.
what did LeBron do?
But then
You
again,
know,
it
what
goes
did
back to
what
the
did he
point of
what did he do?
But his
goes back to
his
the point of being
family,
a leader or
He was
being
able to
a lion of
influence,
your
yeah,
ship,
right? Yeah,
yeah,
you have
right.
to. He was able
right?
to
So
influence them to a different perspective, right?
so at this point, like they were, I was on ESPN. They were saying that this is on him right now. You
Yeah, he's
know,
an adult.
this is
no,
on
of course,
him.
of course, it's on him. It's on
This is
anybody else.
if the first one wasn't on him and the NBA gave him a slap on the wrist, you know, Nike still went ahead with that shoe deal. I mean, Kyrie Irving lost his shoe deal for sharing a link of a music of a movie, something that he personally believed in, and Ja was the one who got that deal. That
Mm.
shoe, Ja was the one who got that. Nike pulled Kyrie's shoe deal because
And
of
give it
him
to Ja.
sharing that so-called anti-Semitic movie,
Mhm.
and Ja got that deal,
So maybe
right?
now, to go back to Kyrie.
So
I,
so 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 with that, so you're saying they rewarded
no.
because
He no,
because
he got the deal prior to any of those allegations
okay,
and things
Yeah,
coming
all
forward,
right.
and it was so close. Like let's say for example, he got the deal 3 weeks ago, and then right now the allegations of whatever it is coming out. Shoes was
Okay.
already designed, and
Yeah.
they said that he was suspending for 8 games. I think he have a deal with Powerade, a new
yeah,
energy drink. They pulled
yeah.
back the campaign later on, and then he said that he checked into some place for help. So everybody thought that this guy was actually getting help and he was changing.
Hmm.
Fast forward now, and he was punished for it because Ja is one of the leaders at least for this season, one of the faces of the NBA, and he didn't make any all-time NBA teams simply because of those allegations and
Hmm.
that suspension. So he has already been punished for it, and a month or 2 months after your regular season end, or a month after, to be seen on IG Live flashing a gun. No, it's not illegal. Like somebody like ESPN correspondent was saying that whatever he did wasn't illegal. It's not illegal. I mean, it's gun culture in the United States, but he has
Well,
to understand that they
it's
are
gone
kids.
culture for some.
Yeah,
Well, no, I mean
yeah.
in general,
No. It's gone culture for some.
for some, but in general, we have a gun issue in the United States, and everybody think it's okay to have a gun. It's okay to show off a gun sometimes. But an ESPN analyst was saying that he has to understand that there are kids looking up to you. You
Well,
know, there are kids
that,
following you on IG and on
I
social media.
not to
And
I
cut
know
you,
what you can
not to,
say
not to
there.
cut you, not
while
to
you were
cut you
saying
off,
that
but
you didn't sign up to be a role model and all of that, all that
well,
stuff.
I was gonna say, right, and so I think from a parenting standpoint, and to go back to the parenting thing,
Mhm.
as that, right, that's another thing that that we have to keep in mind, right? You don't let the internet raise your kids, right? You don't, yes, great. These people should be role models, and you want them to, you in a perfect world, you want them to be, people that your kids look up to and all that. But you don't just leave it up to
Status
them.
doesn't make a role model, though.
Yeah,
And I think that's where
you
parenting
can't just
comes
leave
in.
it up
Like,
to them. You have to
yeah,
be there. You have to be able to explain to them, you know, why things are wrong and right. And in my mind, again, it comes back to like today we were having in one of our group chats. Elon Musk said something about working from home, people who work from
okay.
home and whatever, right? And like
Get me
in
started.
my mind, I'm like, dude, like you talking about people working from home. Meanwhile, you may be selling a car for $60,000 that you maybe make for 15,000, right? So is that morally right? Right? If you're thinking that it's a moral problem for people who want to work from home or whatever he said, it's really just to me, not allowing society and the internet, and now the internet is way more prevalent than it was like when we were growing up, right? So, yeah, you want to put your
Yeah,
kid
the
on,
internet when we were
on
growing up, no
YouTube
boy.
and stuff, and yeah, they're sitting there and watching YouTube and learning, but
But yeah,
they might
remember
also
though.
see things that they shouldn't be seeing.
Yes, but a lot of these things are going to be out of our control, right? Your child
Yep.
goes to school, their friends saw this, their friend did that. So as a parent, you have to find, how do I put my child in a situation, or expose them to good role models, right? And expose them to the right decision making processes and values. We have to do so much more work, I think, than our parents did, right? I
Oh yeah.
think before, society was in a way where those values were, they were pretty much
Shared.
aligned. Right now, that's not the
No, but
case.
no, but the other,
I think we were the last generation to grow up properly.
Yeah,
no, but
I
you
think
see, no,
there's
but
so
the
many
other
things
thing,
against us right now. Yeah,
the other thing too, we had the whole idea of it takes a community to raise
yeah,
a
you do have that one.
Right.
child.
Right.
We used to have that too. So
And
you mess around down the road, boss. You best believe.
by the time you reach home, you know your
At
parents
least,
know.
at least,
But
I
then the
mean,
thing is, I think it's also challenging now because right now you don't know who around you.
Don't know your neighbors.
You don't know your neighbors. You might think you know them, you know their
yep,
names, but you don't know what the mental
mm-mm,
state is.
yep.
And then back home it was easier because you have no choice but to get to know people. Right? But then, so
Someone down in the chat asked us, what is our take on gentle parenting?
gentle parenting.
I, my
What
mother
is
has that.
I know you do,
I
Bob.
don't
what
even,
is
I
that?
don't even, I don't even know what that means. What does
Let
that
me
mean?
look that up.
I never, honestly, I've never heard of that gentle parenting.
Let
What
me
is that?
look it up. Gentle parenting.
It's when you're, I guess, like almost
Evidence-based approach to
with
raising
Papa.
happy, confident children.
Mm-hmm.
This parenting style is composed of four main elements: empathy, respect, understanding, and boundaries. Yeah, I will take off the door of the hinges if you mess around for sure. So.
But that is
And focuses on fostering the qualities you want in your child by being compassionate and enforcing consistent boundaries.
It sounds good. I don't I don't
yeah.
know.
I don't know.
No, no,
It
no, no,
sounds.
no, no.
I feel like those things can backfire. Dude. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
You see
And
the
I've seen it.
boundary.
Honestly,
You
I've seen
see
it already. Okay, I
you see
have.
the boundaries part.
Yeah,
You see the boundaries part. Yeah, I feel
those things can
sometimes
backfire.
parents
Oh,
parents
nice.
parents would set up boundaries a little too early
Yeah.
for children. Yeah,
Yeah.
that the boundaries part kind of hit me. The empathy, yes, I have to, as my child grow, I have to learn to understand my
But even
child.
so, like you said,
And
in moderation in at different stages,
Emotionally
though. Yeah.
emotionally stable adults.
I don't. I feel like they get to an emotionally unstable state
Mhm.
with this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know, man. I think I'm a firm believer, right? Age
Hmm.
doesn't make you an adult, in my
No,
mind.
that's facts.
I agree.
That's
Right?
facts.
So
Maturity,
what the
and it can
mighty
happen
sparrow,
at different
what
times.
the
Yeah.
mighty sparrow
yeah,
say?
like you might have the age, but like if your mind is not there, your level of maturity is not there, then honestly, like I don't care if you're 25, I will treat you as a kid. That's
If
just
you're
how I see it.
behaving like one,
You
yeah,
behave
Of
like a kid, you
course.
get treated like a kid, right?
yeah.
Um,
Let's check
yeah,
the
should
comments
I
there.
ask Hadley a question for you?
Actually,
Should
I have a
I ask?
question for you.
Genuinely curious as to what does it say?
Why?
Why?
Why you think
Why you
removing
think
the
removing
hinges
a
from the
door
door is
often
alright?
be an effective
Nah,
parenting?
because
Sadly explain.
when you establish certain boundaries and that child gets to taking advantage of that boundary, it leads me to removing that boundary.
Also, the
You
door is the
know,
boundary.
this is your bedroom and this is your space.
I'm not cricketing on my radar.
No. This is your boundary. This is your space, your bedroom, right? But it doesn't mean that I'm not allowed in your bedroom as your father to see
Well,
what it is that you're watching on TV at a certain age.
Well, you
well,
don't have
Hanley,
TV. You don't have TV in
the
bedroom.
thing is, the bedroom is his boundary, but the house, the outside of the house, is my boundary. So everything within it, right?
So you see, that's where I was saying in terms of like, let's say like a John Morant. I don't know his family situation, but that's where, you know, whether you're married or you have a child with somebody or whatever the situation is, if two people are not on the same page, man, you're guaranteed to have problems. Because the thing is like, you know, you might be thinking that way, but if your wife or your girlfriend or whoever, you know, you have a child with does not think that way, you'll be doing everything you're doing at your house, and when they go back to wherever they live or when you're not there, they'll do whatever they want, right? So again, this is why I feel like I genuinely feel like, you know, when your child is between the ages of, let's say, 3 and 7 or whatever, something like that, like that's when you really teach or push certain things. Because if you don't do that, then it gets to a point where they become teenagers, and like Chrissy said, at that point they are not influenced by you anymore. They're influenced by the outside world, and if that foundation is not there, then it's easy for them to kind of get sweet. Like Karen made a comment and said, well, his auntie thought he was impressionable. But still, there was a foundation there, right? There was still something in the back of your mind, like, no, this is wrong. I shouldn't do it. There was still, you know, like certain things, right? And if that's not there, that's where you have this type of thing. I really believe, like, you have kids, you have to try to learn your kids, honestly. Because
they saw them in the
And
blood.
that's exactly what Raju's saying there.
no, for real, you have to learn your kids, because you might have 3 kids and they might have 3 different
And they have
personalities.
different style. Yeah,
You
it's
can't,
very true.
and it's the same thing with management, right? You know, you managing people. You have to
How do
learn
people learn?
your team. You have to learn what are people's strengths, what are the weaknesses, all this type of things, because you can't treat everybody, you can't paint everybody with a broad brush.
Yeah.
Everybody's not the same, and you have
At
to
the end
be
of the
able to
day,
adjust.
at the end of the day too, you can do your best, you can do everything you feel that was right, and they will be who they want to be. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
going back to what you said, Hadley, there is a point where you change from parenting to, you can come to me for advice, we can talk, we can consult, but that's your decision. And we
Yep.
also have to know when that time, when that time comes.
Yep.
So it's not bad. It's not gentle parenting. I guess it's not bad, but it's something that you as a parent have to be very careful with, because again, your child can be very intelligent and find ways to take advantage of your style of parenting.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Very
You know?
I don't have an
clever.
accident do it. I don't have an accident do it.
So it's a good approach. I mean, but as long as it doesn't lead to anything where I eventually cannot influence my child and
Right.
discipline
I
my
mean, there's
child.
there's good things in there, right? Like you said, the
Yeah.
empathy thing. And I practice that now. I tell my kids, like things like, when people show emotion or they respond to something, we're like, oh, stop crying there or whatever. I don't do that.
Nah.
So you know what? You want to cry, you're upset. It's okay to be upset, but how you respond, like you can be upset, but don't slam my door. Don't stamp your feet. You know what I mean? You have to
That's it.
learn to manage your emotion. I was telling them, you want to feel angry, you feel angry. That's okay. I feel angry too. But that doesn't mean I'm going to like start throwing things and storming the house. Like that's not acceptable. So you have to learn to manage your
And the-
emotions.
I
There's
said
so
the
many
bu-
things we can teach them in moments of our own frustration or their frustration, right? Because we get frustrated as adults. We can't expect kids to be like little robots,
Right.
So
That's why I said the boundaries part, especially when you set physical boundaries. That can be a
That was the question we.
no, that can be a little thing, because I
that
remember
was-
I remember I'm listening to this comedian, and this guy was talking about when he was growing up, he had this little white friend, and he was a black kid and he had a white friend, and then they were in the room, and then his mother just barged into the room, man, and his mother talking about why the room's so messy, and then when the mother asked them to clean the room, he told them, about, dude, this is your space, man. How you allow her to come into your space and just say what she you know? and
I love that.
then so it's like, I guess it's a different style of parenting. You can talk to your
Different
child.
cultures, man.
Like it was highly impossible for my grandmother to talk to me, even if I had my own bedroom, for me to be so mad and walk into that bedroom and slam that door. You crazy?
Boy,
Nah, man.
the same is it slam with it bursting open.
Yeah, man.
You crazy? So the boundaries, the boundaries,
No, man.
especially the physical ones.
It may not necessarily mean physical boundaries, but you
No,
know,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from, man.
Again,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the takeaway for me tonight is mainly
Space he paid rent.
Lady.
well, indeed, that's how I feel too. You know, I go like,
Yeah,
but
Oh boy.
but
I'm actually coming
honestly,
and put my business outside there.
I think I genuinely feel like, you know, you have to try to make the effort, and it's difficult, but you have to make the effort to learn and understand your kid, understand your child, understand, you know, what kind of moves them, what doesn't move them, because I mean, we all grew up with people that got a lot of blows and they still turn out to do nothing in their life. So it's
Boy.
those doesn't
Boy,
necessarily mean that
doesn't
people
really,
fail.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It
yeah.
it all depends.
Honestly, I don't. I
That's how
don't.
kids are learning to
I
like
think
blues, you know.
there's so many different ways to, like you say, motivate our user, right? To kids to do the right thing. You don't need the blows. Some people still think you need it. There are times I want to do it. There are
Yeah,
times pinching,
yeah,
flicking, those things. Yeah, I can do those there.
No,
yeah.
I hate the pinching. If you pinch my child,
That
we have a
hurts.
fighting.
Yes,
Boy,
but yeah, but there's. I think talking communication is really key. I talk to my
yeah,
kids a lot.
yeah.
They probably tired to hear me talk. I talk to them like they're adults too, right? Explain things. Don't simplify things all the time for children. They're very intelligent. They can understand
Oh my
English
God.
very well.
Oh yeah, they know
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah,
Speak to
trust me.
them like explain the stuff the way it is, for
Yep.
sure.
Oh man,
Wake up on
we over time. I enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, the conversation going well.
We over time.
Me,
yeah.
I take it. I
Um,
take it. I take it all the tips now. We.
let me just read some of the comments. Lake said, let's be honest. Kids can be a-holes sometimes. I believe that gentle parenting is situational. Yes, that's true.
It's true, man. I
Um,
mean,
as has been said before, treat children as people,
I
and they need to respect, etc. However, it does not mean they can just do as they please.
I
Actually,
agree
just
for
come and put
Rashida.
my business outside and say, "Oh, my grandmother used to give us deadly volume."
I
And
agree with Rashida there. She said,
I'm,
I think the issue with blows and Caribbean people sometimes borders abuse. That's a fact. That's a fact. There's no two ways about that.
yeah.
Was it
I
more
mean,
than in some cases it was
cable and
abuse?
wireless wire. That is
yeah.
abuse.
Having mark
I
on your
would,
skin.
Yeah.
I would say I'm one of those who got blows, but after a while, my grandmother realized
I was a good kid.
Yeah, right.
it wasn't thing.
I didn't get blues.
Whereas I have a cousin who literally, when he got the opportunity to run from Kolibi Street, this dude ran, and he never came back. Up to this day, that man will come down Kolibi Street, check his mother, hi everybody, and that dude has never came back because he has bad memories. I remember his dad taking that coax cable, and for whatever reason he came home late. We were still by the school playing cricket after school, and his father figured out you should be home. And this dude lives just across the river from the school.
Yeah.
And his dad beat him with that cable, and like all of us felt that it was us getting that. And up to this day, this dude got the opportunity to work. His first job was far from Kolibi Street, and he has never returned. And this dude right now, he has kids, and I mean, the way I see him take care of his kids and whatnot, I think he is trying his best to never treat his kids how he was treated as a kid. You know.
All right, everyone.
Yeah, man.
You guys can wrap it up. I mean, you guys were interviewing us, as you say.
So you just
No,
all right. I'll take it.
Now people coming in there, everybody talking about the love.
Boy, that take it there. We love the discussion. Want to be big up yourself.
We'll do another one, man. We'll do another
We'll
one.
have
but
another
Yeah,
one.
yeah, definitely.
I like
we have a
Chrissy.
few more episodes left.
Chris, you need to come back because
I'm not a guest here. I'll be a friend of the host.
you're gonna be a friend of the show.
Well, right now, I'm going to put Chrissy on the spot there.
Oh Lord.
I definitely believe in men I think that's an issue we have in Dominica with our young men doing positive thing, and I think that was one of the things that created Talk the Thing.
Mhm.
Men
I wasn't
doing.
sure where you were going with that. No, boy.
Boy, I don't
Just
gonna lie.
no,
I don't
wait,
gonna lie. When
I
he
did
said
have
that, I
to
was like,
speak
bruh,
fast. Let him talk.
Go ahead. You wanted me
He
to go.
disappeared.
he must turn off his camera.
Adley.
Boy, I swear.
Ironically, man.
Adley, I'm thinking that Alexa turn off the room on him, boy.
Papa, good.
He probably pressed something, man.
All right.
Anyway,
Well, we'll wrap it up, folks. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving us your time. You know, like, subscribe, comment. What do you say it again? Is those free? Like, comment,
yeah,
subscribe?
yeah, but subscribe first.
Subscribe.
Before the top.
Yeah, Targeting the
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Thank you all for joining us. Chrissy, thank you for coming on. Doing big up yourself.
Yes, sir.
And that's a wrap.
All right. To be continued. Yes, Ash Heavenly.
To be continued.
We are wrong.